is the fact that people are voting for critical parties like the DA, and they need high voter turnout because it's got strongholds in the likes of the Western Cape and Gauteng. But over the years, voters have become apathetic and have decided not to vote. So what are the likely outcomes in this year's local government elections? And of course, I've got my trusted, now friend and colleague,
definitely
Marie,
friend,
to help us unpack that data. Marie, let's take a look at the first slide here when it comes to the data. So, party support over time, and the big mover here was the ANC. Talk us through that from 2016 local government elections to what we saw within our surveys that we were running. There were some significant moves here, and not for the better.
Yes, that's quite true. As we can see here, we look at the 2016 local government election, then support for the three biggest parties in the 2019 national election. Then we look at all registered voters in wave 1 of the eNCA pre-election surveys and wave 3 of the eNCA pre-election surveys. If we look at the ANC, they started off quite well in 2016 with 53.91% of the support. It went up in the national election, basically because the turnout was so bad in the 2016 election. They did a lot of work after 2016. We got a new president after 2016. And this result in 2019 was the result of the new presidency, the new dawn that we spoke about earlier today. But if we now look at it in October 2021, if we look at all registered voters, that is that 26.2 million people that we have spoken about before. ANC support at 36.8 and at 30%. However, this is not what's going to happen in the election. We will talk about that just now. But let's look at the DA and EFF support. DA starting at 26.9. They had a little bit of a dump in the road and got 20.8. Currently, they're testing 16% around there. EFF was just after the formation of the EFF. They got 4.25% in 2016. Then they went on to 2019, 10.8, 8.2. Currently, they're testing at 10.2. But I think the most important thing on this video wall, we need to look at the bottom. The people who gave another answer.
Yeah.
They said things like, I don't trust political parties. I don't trust the leaders of political parties. Why should I vote? Nothing ever happens. Some people say they're unemployed, so why should they vote?
And that's quite a big number.
It's a big number. It's a significant number. So we can see this is not what's going to happen. Therefore, we did something to the figures, which we will see on the next slide.
Yeah, let's have a look. Before we get to what you're talking about, I just want to take a look at our next slide quickly. And it's showing us this possible scenario, the national scenario that we're likely to see should the elections go in which way we've surveyed. Marie, very briefly, talk us through what's likely to happen on a national scale.
Right. Again, we just transferred the one column here, which gives us the wave 3 results with that 31% at the bottom who gave another answer. Then if we look across, these are essentially coming from the same survey. The first one is all registered voters who want to vote, because we ask people different questions. Do you want to vote? Are you likely to vote? What do you think of political leaders? We ask them a myriad of questions. We take all these things together and work out a model that gives us a low, medium and high voter turnout. So we apply the figures of a high, medium and low turnout to that column 2, which gives us the all registered voters. And as you can see, turnout is the big thing in this election, Rofhiwa. Look at the ANC, for instance. High voter turnout will give them 45.7%.
So they benefit, they're quite a bit.
Their best fit is on a medium voter turnout.
Yeah.
And then if we look just at as an illustration at the DA, their best fit is at the low voter turnout, 31.5% that they will get at the low voter turnout. The reason why it is not linear is because different things happen within different parties when it comes to turnout figures. For instance, the EFF is a good example here. they have, the figures have moved a little bit here. But anyway, when the EFF figures show that the higher the turnout,
The lower.
the lower the support.
Very interesting.
So it works in different ways across the different political parties. I think the EFF figure is lost here somewhere. And then there's obviously a myriad of other parties. We've heard before there's more than 50 parties standing in the Western Cape. Obviously, they are going to get votes.
Of course, people are trying something new, like we've spoken about in different instances. We are going to be running out of time, so let's quickly just move on to the next slide. Marie, we're going to be looking at the different metros. This again illustrating that the ANC is going to benefit from a medium voter turnout.
Yes.
And what else, like the DA I mentioned in my intro, that the Western Cape is going to need a decent number of people voting. We don't know how much of that is going to happen given the thunderstorms that we're seeing in the Western Cape. And you said earlier, people are choosing to focus on keeping their homes dry than going out to vote. So when we speak about Johannesburg, Nelson Mandela Bay, as well as Tshwane, what are we looking at here in terms of these big parties?
In terms of Johannesburg, definitely the ANC will benefit from a high voter turnout in Johannesburg. I'm not sure what will happen in Johannesburg. The DA, again, as we've seen before with the previous one, profiting from a low voter turnout. But you have to keep in mind that the DA voters, the majority of DA voters are in Gauteng. And secondly, in the Western Cape, just in terms of numbers of DA voters. And then the EFF, fortunately, EFF figures on this wall, we can see high voter turnout to the benefit of them, medium turnout, not too bad, but a very few people turn out to vote. We have done in some of the other things we looked at earlier this week, or last week, at the end of last week, it is more difficult for the EFF to motivate their voters to go out and vote than it is for the ANC or the DA.
Yeah, and look at what's interesting here, Marie, before we move on to Tshwane. Action SA making quite a significant play here, benefiting from a high voter turnout, but also benefiting from a medium and low voter turnout, given that they're a new party.
They are a new party. They're doing the best of all the different places in Johannesburg. I think it has to do with the fact that Mashaba was the mayor of Johannesburg before. So their best showing will be here in Johannesburg. And it's possible, looking at the possible results of other parties, that Action SA might be one of the kingmakers in Johannesburg.
Oh, that's going to get a lot of people very interested. Let's quickly take a look at Tshwane before we move on to Nelson Mandela Bay. A similar kind of situation here. But very interestingly, the ANC got quite high in the Tshwane region, despite any of the voter turnouts that they might be getting.
Yes, I think the ANC had a big fright in 2016 when they lost the capital city on the local government elections. They did a lot of work in Tshwane, and their election machine is second to none. They really have a good well, there's no other word for it, election machine, getting to voters to come out and vote, expressing support for the ANC and so on. The interesting thing about Tshwane for me is that it's possible that the EFF will be the opposition party in Tshwane and not the DA.
That's interesting. And I think the data is showing us just that. Very, very high numbers for the EFF there. Let's quickly take a look at Nelson Mandela Bay. Another big one for me when it comes to the ANC here, Marie. I think they did rather well getting that over 50 plus one that you would need to run Big Metro. And they are doing that with the voter turnouts if they turn out that way.
If everything goes to plan in Nelson Mandela Bay, I think they will take the metro perhaps with 50 plus one. If everything doesn't go to plan, they might need one of the smaller parties to work with them. We can see they have a big choice there. From the ACDP, if they only need 0.5%, the EFF can be a partner there. Good Party can be a partner. The UDM, which has their strongest showing in Nelson Mandela Bay, can be a partner. So yes, the ANC should do it on their own in Nelson Mandela Bay, but in case it doesn't happen, there are other parties that they can work with. I don't think, well, the DA is doing quite well in Nelson Mandela Bay as well, but they will need more coalition partners.
Yeah, we have to wrap, and I'm glad you bring up coalitions, because we have to wrap on that note. Just a broad sense of what the survey brought out in terms of coalitions. I think our graphics operator can update as we talk, because that's what we had on there in terms of coalitions. So just a broad sense of the overall outcomes when it came to coalitions.
There are basically two streams in the thoughts about coalitions. On the one side, people are totally fine with it. They say, I support this fully, I will work together with this. That is a strong feeling coming through from about a third to 4 in every 10 people in the big metros. And the other one is that I first want to see what will happen. That's also coming through even more stronger, and especially in a place like Nelson Mandela Bay, saying, let's first see how it all pans out before make a decision. And I think a lot of parties are that wicked at the moment. They first want to see whether they can go it alone. I do think we're probably going to have coalition governments in most of the metros, not only these three, except in Cape Town, but the others might all
end up being coalitions. Even after the disaster we saw in Tshwane, Johannesburg and Nelson Mandela Bay in 2016, Marie. Very interesting insights there, of course. And Mfundo coming from Marie with IPSOS and eNCA compiling a whole bunch of data in the lead up to the local government elections. Of course, people are currently voting, and we will be back with you tomorrow with a lot of that data that's coming through in terms of voter turnout and some other insights in terms of service delivery and more.